most of the 40 inmates on federal death row. Biden will be changing the death sentences to life without parole to all but 3 inmates, the exceptions being the Boston bomber and the 2 men responsible for the mass shootings at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and the church in Charleston, South Carolina. Advocates fighting against the death penalty, including Pope Francis, had been urging President Biden to grant the commutations before Donald Trump, who is pro-capital punishment, takes over in January. Biden said in a statement, "Make no mistake, I condemn these murderers, grieve for the victims of their despicable acts, and ache for all the families who have suffered unimaginable and irreparable loss. I am more convinced than ever that we must stop the use of the death penalty at the federal level. In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted." Joining us now is the president and CEO of the NAACP, Derek Johnson. The organization has been advocating for the Biden administration to commute the sentences of even more people in prison, especially those incarcerated under the war on drugs. So Derek, what do you make of this move? Perhaps not surprising, particularly after the Pope weighed in, but what do you make of it?
Well, we commend the president for this extraordinary act. The clemency and pardon powers of the president is unmatched. And it's good to see that he's using the moral authority of his faith to do what's right. You think about those who are on death row. Over 55% of those individuals are people of color, African Americans and Latinos and others. In fact, for every 8 people who are killed, 1 person later is found to be exonerated. So we are encouraging the president to continue on this moral path to ensure that the disparities that we see in the system that has been proven is addressed through the clemency process. There are individuals that should be pardoned. They are productive citizens. And this is the type of legacy that we will want to see any president go out on. A legacy of helping people, recognizing disparities, and addressing moral inequities.
So, Derek, in 2021, Attorney General Merrick Garland actually issued a moratorium on federal executions. Of course, that doesn't apply to state executions, but he did on federal executions. What do you think happens to that moratorium under a new Trump administration?
Well, unfortunately, we will resume in the process for those who are on death row to be addressed. But think about it. We are clearing the road now. The president, with this one act, have reduced the number of federal inmates on death row from 40 to 3. I think that's extraordinary. And so what happens after this will take a while, because to go through a trial, to be sentenced for to death is not something that happens overnight. So hopefully with this act, we can begin to right-size the criminal justice system, at least on the federal level. But particularly, we are encouraging the president to continue on this path. There are far too many individuals who was convicted of the crime today would not be in prison. They would not be received the harsh punishment they've received. And so he must continue on this voyage. It's the moral thing to do, and we commend him for what he's done so far.
Derek, Sam Stein here. I think the backdrop to this is kind of interesting, which is it was Joe Biden in the mid-90s who crafted the law, the crime bill, that ended up establishing some of the statutes that applied for the federal death penalty. And now we have him, what is it, my math's pretty bad, 30 years later, going in the opposite direction. As this decision comes down this morning, commuting or changing the sentences to life without parole for 37 of the 40 inmates, I'm just wondering if you could talk about what you think the politics are here, because obviously the White House will be attacked for this decision by a lot of people who think, look, these are heinous cases, horrible crimes, these people do not deserve leniency. And Joe Biden, you set the law yourself for putting these people to death. Do you think there's going to be sharp political blowback? Do you think it will stick?
You know, I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s. I understand the crack epidemic and the fear it had in the African-American community, which generated the law of 1994. And as a result of that law, you had the majority of the Congressional Black Caucus who also supported their law. So let's evolve as a nation. Our understanding around the criminal justice system has evolved. In fact, mass incarceration has not served this nation. So if we don't learn from the past, we're doomed to repeat it. So I commend the president for taking a stand today to address what we know is the reality. mass incarceration, inequity in citizens, and the disparity between crack and powder did not serve this nation well. So let's look forward, not look backward. I don't think anybody will have that backlash, although those who will be individuals who are already in the Trump camp.
President Johnson, Simone Sanders Townsend here. I'm wondering what else you would like to see the president do prior to him leaving office on January 20th. I'm positive that the president has sought your counsel, and I'm wondering what that was.
Well, first of all, we encourage this administration, the president, to use the clemency powers to address the disparities across the board. You have individuals who are sitting jail today who is convicted of marijuana crimes that's no longer a crime in pretty much 50 other states. You have individuals who are subject to disproportionate impact of sentencing disparities. You have individuals like Kimber Smith or Marilyn Mosley who should be pardoned. We have an opportunity to hear, as this administration go out, to right-size our criminal justice system on a federal level in a way that we have not seen before. His legacy is something that we will celebrate once he pardoned and commute the sentence of so many individuals who should not be sitting in jail or who could be leading productive lives and contributing to society.
And Caddy mentioned the role that Pope Francis had to play here. The White House announced that President Biden will make his final international trip while in office to the Vatican to see the Pope sometime next month. President and CEO of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, thank you, sir, for joining us.